Welcome to FCNYC. My name is Ben Chan. I'm here with Aris Pina. Aris, how are those teeth, man?
Feeling good, thank you.
You had a good Thanksgiving?
Great one. My parents were here, everything went well.
That's awesome. So let's start this episode with this past week's weekend's fights that we did. We had Canelo Alvarez in action. He TKO'd Cintron in 5 rounds. Maybe that wasn't the biggest news. Maybe what happened after the fight when he called out Floyd Mayweather. What do you think about that fight?
Mayweather fight?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to fight Floyd Mayweather. I mean, besides Manny Pacquiao, he's the biggest money maker in boxing. Obviously, he wants to fight him. Can't blame him. You know, Canelo Alvarez has a lot of broad talent. The guy, for 21 years old, he's come a long way. He has 40-something fights, undefeated, world champ. You know, he's a titleist now with a couple of defenses under his belt, and he's progressing really well. You know, he has great skill, but he's still too rugged to fight a guy like Mayweather. I mean, he still needs a few years. It reminds me of when Fernando Vargas went in with Felix Trinidad back in 2001.
Yeah, I don't think I saw anything versus Cintron that would make me believe that he would be competitive with anybody.
Not at all. I mean, look, he's a big guy for his division, very husky, very well built. Excuse me. You know, he has good skills, very good hand speed. He has good power. He knows how to move his body really well, but he's still a little too rigid. He still has a lot to learn. Give him time.
Right. This is sort of a win-win situation for him because if he gets the fight, if he loses, he's too young, so he's going to lose anyway, and so he moves on. For Mayweather, I think I don't see why he would have a problem taking this fight if the money was right. I mean, I
wouldn't be surprised if the fight is made. I mean, he called out Mayweather. If the Pacquiao fight can't be made, what else is going to be? Where else is there that could be as big?
Right.
I mean, I'd love to see him fight Martinez, but
right. This would be a Cinco de Mayo fight, May 5th,
and it's in-house. Golden boy, you know. So.
Right. So also in action on this past Saturday, we had Broner beating Martin Rodriguez to become a world champion.
Oh, Adrian.
What do you think about Adrian?
I mean, look, he's a very talented fighter, but I mean, he's in the worst division in boxing right now. It's not too bad, but it is what it is. You know, but there are a few fighters out there that I think would give Broner a hell of a fight, including Juan Carlos Burgos, who we just saw recently on the recent undercard for our last pay-per-view fight that we worked. Also, Eloy Perez, who's a top prospect, who Doug Fisher highly touts. Yeah, and there's a few other guys too. I mean, you have Argenius Mendes, who's promoted by Lou DiBella, who's coming off a really controversial loss to Juan Carlos Salgado, and also Salgado himself, plus Yuriorkis Gamboa is supposed to be making a pit stop before moving to 135. So there are a few guys there, but when it comes down to it, Broner doesn't really have much to choose from. So, I mean, he can rack up a few defenses of his belt. He's extremely talented. He tries to be like Floyd Mayweather a little too much, I think. He needs to become more of his own man. But at the same time, he has talented, and the sky's the limit for him. See where he can go.
Right. I guess as long as his father keeps his hair combed and
exactly. You know, Broner, he is very cocky, and I think, you know, he has the Al Heyman treatment of being put on HBO and showcase fights, in which I thought he lost the first one against, Ponce de Leon. But at the same time, he is progressing. He's still young, and hopefully he stays on the right track because he does have potential.
Okay, and then the fight that was first of the night that ended up being showed in between these two fights was the Gary Russell demolishing Heriberto Ruiz. Now, was this a statement fight for Gary Russell Jr.?
To a degree, it was. I mean, Heriberto Ruiz is a name. He's been around the block before. He fought a split decision, lost to Steve Molitor. He had a title fight against Rafael Marquez a few years back. But he is above his best weight division, and he is way past his best. You know, he was cold-cocked by current titleist right now, Rico Ramos, in 2 rounds last year, and now Gary Russell Jr. just completely annihilated. What a knockout that was, huh? And Russell, I mean, look, another guy extremely talented, possibly has the fastest hands in boxing with the exception of Gamboa. And the sky's the limit for Russell also, but he needs to step his competition up because he's been really just beating a lot of overmatched guys. And for his division, he really needs to step it up. It almost reminds me of, when Roy Jones first came on the scene early in his career, and his father really, protected him. And people were wondering, when are you going to step him up? He has all the talent, let him go.
Who would you like to see him fight?
Right now, I think he's ready for a titleist. There's, those guys out there in that division besides Gamboa. I mean, I'd love to see him in there with, maybe Juanma Lopez pretty soon. Orlando Salido is another guy that could be up there. Guys like that, I think he's ready for. Oh, I mean, I can't say Lopez, excuse me. Like a guy like Salido, I think would be a very good fight for him.
Yeah, Lopez, I don't think he looks... The last time we saw him, I don't think he looked like he was at that fighting weight anymore. So
I agree.
We'll see what Juanma decides to do next. But let's move on, and this weekend we have...
Oh, I'm sorry, one more time. Another guy from that division is, Garcia. So that's another guy right there that is really up in the mix. That Russell, they're up right.
Definitely. So let's move on to this weekend. We have a jam-packed weekend with fights on HBO and Showtime. Let's start with the Showtime card, which features Vic Darchinyan, and then we have the rematch. But let's start with the Darchinyan match. He's fighting Nelson Moreno. What do you think about this fight?
It's a very good fight. It's Moreno's coming out party in the USA. He's built a very credible record against solid competition. He's beaten, excuse me, oh Jesus, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? He's beaten a lot of credible guys so far. He's obviously one of the lesser known names in boxing right now, but one of boxing's best kept secrets. This is his best chance right now against Darchinyan, a hardened veteran who's coming off a tremendous win against Yanni Perez. Solid fight, another addition to the bantamweight tournament that has been going very well, and can't wait for it.
Well, do you think that Moreno can handle Darchinyan's power?
That's what we're going to find out. A lot of people, Moreno is like a YouTube sensation. For what I've seen him, I think he can. He's very well skilled. He has a good background in everything he does. Very well rounded. Darchinyan also is the same thing. He's kind of hard or cold. At one moment he's blasting on a guy like Yanni Perez. The next moment he's struggling against Joseph Abeko, who was no slouch himself. Right. So at the same time, you don't know where Darchinyan is going to come from. If he comes with a wild swinging, balls to the wall, let's just try to knock you out, Darchinyan, and Moreno should handle him with relatively ease. But if he doesn't, he comes in and he's just, he boxes patiently like he did in the Christian Maharas fight, who Moreno beat twice, then we could have a very compelling matchup. Depends what kind of Darchinyan shows up. If the last one that showed up, the one that beat Yanni Perez comes, then we're in for a great fight.
Okay, and then for the main event, we have a rematch of Alvarez versus Joseph Abeko. Now, their first fight was very controversial. It was ref by Sergio Mora Jr., and there were a lot of low blows. Russell Mora Jr., Sergio Mora. Russell Mora Jr., and Alvarez landed a lot of low blows, and he was warned many times and never deducted, and he was awarded a knockdown on a low blow in the 11th round. And I was actually quite shocked that Abeko took those low blows so well, and this was a competitive fight. Very competitive. And how do you think the rematch is going to shape up?
Another very, very close-knit type competitive fight. Mares, I have a feeling, is going to be a little hindered because the referee's going to be checking so much. Since it was so controversial the first fight, Mares is going to be a little bit hindered with his body attack because the referee's going to be looking, make sure nothing's going to be scrutinized, no controversy this time. So it's going to be interesting to see how Mares adapts to that with his body attack. He never really threw an intentional low blow against Abeko. That's just his style. Sometimes punches tend to stray low. Of course, that last round, that 11th round knockdown was BS, but I expect Mares actually to put it together and beat Abeko again even more comprehensively.
Really?
I do. I'm going with it, yeah.
I'm rooting for Abeko because he's from Ghana by way of the Bronx, so I'm going to root for the local guy. But I would favor Mares in this fight just because Abeko, I think, is he's been in a lot of tough fights, and he's not getting.
And his activity hasn't been that great either.
Right.
Being with Don King, you fight once every 3 years now.
Right.
So.
But I still think I still can't get in my head, even despite all the disadvantages he had in that first fight, he was still in that fight.
He was tooth and nail, and Mares was a little frazzled from that.
Right, and so I'm looking forward to actually that fight, and then I'm also looking forward to being at Madison Square Garden for this pay-per-view card that you and Sean Glover are going to be doing the Punch Zone for. Now, this card from top to bottom has stacked with good fights. Let's start with the first fight of the night. We're going to have the Paul Malik Delvin Rodriguez rematch.
It's the first fight.
Yeah.
I was there live for their first fight. And what an absolute war. It's the best fight I've ever seen live. Paul Wallach and Devin Rodriguez, these guys don't know how to take a back seat. Wallach is just a hard-working man. He works in construction during the day, trains at night. Ultimate blue-collar fighter, Devin Rodriguez, another guy doesn't know how to take a back step, has great skills, always a warrior. Both guys have never really reached the top. This fight can propel them to that. I can't wait.
And their first fight was a controversial draw. A lot of people...
I thought Rodriguez won, including me. I thought Rodriguez won by a couple of points.
Who would you favor in this fight? In the rematch?
It's going to be really tough. I actually favor Wallach. I think that in the first fight, once Rodriguez got himself going, Wallach was hindered because of a huge swelling on his eye, and that's what really slowed him down. If that swelling doesn't take place again, Wallach was really landing some shots and almost blew Rodriguez out of the ring the first 3 rounds. So when it comes to that much, I think Wallach this time actually romps him and beats him more by 3 points or so.
Okay, and then the second fight of the night is going to be Mike Jones versus Sebastian Luan. How do you think that fight's going to shape up?
Another very good fight. Mike Jones has been coming up steadily through the ranks. He's fought, a very tough selection of opponents. As you know, Russell Peltz, the Hall of Fame promoter, will never put you in easy. Sebastian Luan is a hardened veteran. Remember when his ear was ripped apart by by Antonio Margarito years ago, and two very, very tough veteran, very tough veteran, and Sebastian Luzon. Mike Jones is one of the top contenders in the welterweight division, ready to go up to the very top. He needs to get past a guy like Lujan to make it, and the winner of this fight will be fighting Carson Jones for the vacant title that Andre Berto just vacated. Got him to get ready for the
rematch between
Victor Ortiz. Exactly.
So who do you think is going to win this fight?
Mike Jones has better skills, but Sebastian Luzon will keep on coming at you, and he's very unorthodox in the way he throws his punches, looping different directions. He seems easy to beat, but he's actually extremely awkward. Jones should beat him. He has better technical skill, but we shall see.
It could end up being like the Soto Karass fight.
Possibly, and Jones can't afford to get himself into the trenches. Yes, you're a Philadelphia fighter, but you have boxing skills on top.
Right, definitely. And then we have Brandon Rios versus John Murray.
You know, that's another great fight. Brandon Rios is the type of guy, you can't miss him. He's compelling television every time he comes on the screen. He's always going to make it a fight. No matter, he can fight an absolute bum and still be exciting. John Murray's coming off a very tough loss in his last fight to the fighter that actually should begin this fight, Kevin Mitchell. But, you know, John Murray at the same time is highly skilled. He's a very good fighter from England. And, you know, he's coming with extra motivation for this fight. Brandon Rios, his first fight in Madison Square Garden, the first big fight on the East Coast. He's, you know, second to the biggest pay-per-view card of the year. He's going to bring it. It should be a very, very good action fight. I expect Rios to win, but Murray should, you know, put up a brave stand.
Okay, and then we have the main event. We have the fighter that most of the New York crowd in Madison Square Garden is going to be there to see. We got Miguel Cotto fighting Antonio Margarito for the second time. We've seen the 24/7. We know who the good guy is. We know who the bad guy is. Now let's talk about the fight itself. You know, you can say that Margarito hasn't won a significant fight since 2008. The time that he beat Cotto. How much does he have left?
Well, you know, Manny Pacquiao really beat him bad, so we're not really sure. I mean, all I know is that Antonio Margarito is going to be coming forward throwing punches like he always does. He doesn't know any different. He is an extremely durable, extremely tough guy who does hit hard whether he has loaded wraps or not. And he's going to volume puncher. Miguel Cotto, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, he really, hopefully for this fight, he trained going backwards for a few times. You know, doing backwards running techniques, pad work, everything, sparring going backwards. He needs to get those lug muscles ready because, you know, we've seen him that he can outbox Margarito. I mean, he did it in the first fight pretty comprehensively for the first few rounds, but if he keeps on backing up, his legs are going to get tired. For me, in a former boxer myself, I know how that can be. And if his legs are in good enough shape that he can fight on the back foot, and, you know, instead of trying to get into the trenches, he should be able to outbox Margarito with relative ease. But at the same time, Margarito is going to keep it compelling because he's going to keep on throwing those volume punches.
Well, we know Cotto's going to go after the eye.
Yeah, that's what. And you know, it's interesting to hear Robert Garcia actually tell his sparring partners, you know, work on his eye, because they know that Cotto is going to be going for that. It doesn't look good.
What do you think about Cotto hooking up with his new trainer, the guy who defected from the Cuban national team? Do you think that's going to make any difference in his style?
I mean, it remains to be seen. Cotto is, you know, who Cotto is Cotto is. I don't think any trainer should really try to gravitate anything far away from what Cotto originally was, which is a good pressure fighter, boxer, puncher. And he's always going to be that, you know, but he's always added nice little skills to his game. He's always been a good boxer. He knows how to move around the ring. He has a good jab, good footwork, good, you know, decent head movement. Cotto's always been a very good boxer all around. There's always just little things you can add to it. We'll see what this trainer adds.
Okay, and there's one thing that I noticed from the second episode of 24/7 when they had Cotto was working the pads with his trainer, and something I noticed is that when Cotto when the trainer got in close with the pads, Cotto kind of turned his shoulder and threw sort of a half elbow kind of thing, and I think that's something I would look for in the fight is that when Antonio Margarito gets in there close, I would expect Cotto to try something like that just to get some distance between himself and Margarito. And then also remember that, you know, even despite the fact that, you know, you've heard all this propaganda about Cotto being the good guy, Margarito being the bad guy, Cotto's the one that kind of uses those borderline tactics like he did, you know, to escape Zab Judah, arguably. You know, Zab Judah had him in some trouble before he started landing those low blows. So I wouldn't be surprised if I saw some of those tactics resurface.
You never know. I mean, to fight Antonio Margarito, you have to get down and dirty sometimes because then, you know, he's not afraid. Margarito's not afraid to use his head. He's not afraid to throw a couple of low punches. That's who he is. And sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. I'm not saying retaliate at every instance, but at the same time, Cotto knows what he has to do. He's been in there before. It's still in the back of his mind what happened in the first fight, and he knows that this is his redemption.
So you've had all this build-up. Everybody's excited for this fight, but like I said before, Margarito hasn't really won a really significant fight since 2008. He's got the issue with the eye. He almost didn't get licensed because of the eye. Cotto has lost a lot of fights. He's a bit shop-worn. Do you think this fight is going to live up to the expectations that everybody has?
I think so. I think so, most definitely, because these two guys are made for each other. Their styles are perfect when it comes to a boxer puncher and just an absolute all-and-out slugger. And the fact that hatred, those guys hate each other. This is not fake. This is as real gets. This is going to make it a great fight.
Who are you picking?
I'm favoring Cotto right now. Slowly favoring Cotto. I wouldn't be surprised if Margarito beats him. I know a couple of guys, including Mike Coppinger from Ring Magazine and a couple of others, that are picking Margarito by knockout. Mm-hmm. But I'm going with Cotto by decision. I wouldn't be surprised if Margarito pulled it out, though.
Mm-hmm. And also of note, Steve Smager is going to be the one refereeing the fight, so we know that he doesn't have a reputation for ending fights early.
There will be blood.
Right. And before we end tonight's episode, we want to say a word about the passing of Ron Lyle, the perennial heavyweight contender from the 70s. He fought Ali, he fought Foreman. Aris, what are your thoughts about his passing?
Ron Lyle, who I had a chance to spend some time with back in 2010 and spent a lot of time with in 2003. Class act all around. Really tough guy, very hardened veteran. I mean, when it comes down to Ron Lyle, he fought in the greatest era of the heavyweight division back in the 1970s, and he fought everybody. I mean, look at his body of work. He fought Muhammad Ali, gave him a hell of a fight. George Foreman gave him a hell of a fight. Joe Bugner, Buster Mathis Jr., Jerry Quarry, Oscar Bonavera, Jimmy Ellis, Jerry Cooney at the very end of his career, Ernie Shavers. I mean, this man fought everybody, didn't duck anyone. And Jimmy Young, who everybody was ducking at the time, and Ron Lyle fought him twice. Mm-hmm. I mean, Ron Lyle was a very, very tough fighter. Came from a very hard background. Spent a lot of time as for manslaughter.
Right, in jail.
In jail and everything. And you know what? When it came down to it, though, he was who he was. He was very proud of his career when I talked to him. Humble guy. And he did the best that he could in a very tough division, and he did a very great job. I mean, when it came down to, besides the Joe Frazier and Ken Norton fight, Ron Lyle gave Muhammad Ali his toughest fight back in the 70s.
Right, came in within one round of winning
one round final, yeah, and he came really close. He was leading very comprehensively, winning a decision, dropped George Foreman twice in one of the greatest fights of all time, and fought everybody else. Much peace and love to you, and you know what? They don't really make them like that anymore.
No, they certainly don't. Rest in peace, Ron Lyle.
Rest in peace.
Thank you for watching FCNYC. Take care, everybody.
Good night.